Welcome to Your Time to Soar, the wisdom from pearls with Lois Leonard and Dr. Pat. What are the pearls? Have you ever heard from your parents or grandparents basic information like God never gives you more than you can handle, or this too shall pass? These pearls are some of the tools that will help dreams come to life. Your Time to Soar with the Wisdom and Pearls is a show that reminds or introduces us to the sayings from mentors that provide us wisdom when going to achieve our dreams. These gems provide a return to basics to simplify your life. If you're looking for a change in your life, stay tuned with us. Your Time to Soar starts now.
Hey, everybody, welcome. This is such a great show. And I'm Dr. Pat, and I really have the honor of doing this show with Lois Leonard. When we talk about Your Time to Soar, there's a couple things, Lois, and what a great topic you picked for today. You know, I grew up with a mom that was super uber optimistic, like totally. And one of her she had two favorite sayings. One of them, we didn't even understand what she meant till we were like 40. And that was, you make your bed, you sleep in it. We never understood that.
I know
But
that one.
she would be saying that right now today. But there's another one that she would say, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And she was always right.
Wise woman, exceptionally wise woman.
Right. However, let's get underneath it, because it doesn't mean we don't go through the dark and the light of change, does it?
Absolutely not. I don't think you can actually avoid that. Some people try to, if I don't pay attention, maybe it'll just pass me by, or, it, or resist it and say, this is really not happening. But it is. And maybe let me sort of take you on what, for me, when my grandmother used to say this to me, and she said it, well, with me, more often than I think I really wanted to hear. So
Me too.
it's one where I think, I live in one town, and 2 days a week I drive down to a different town. I take the same route. I do not change. I don't veer from the route, and yet the drive changes every day. The same drive that I took last week is not the same this week. Whether it's I see more wildlife or I see something, every constant happenings in change. I think it is the one constant we have in our life, which is kind of oxymoronic in my universe, but everything's going to change. It just depends on how we want to respond to what's being, I'll say, gifted to us, even though sometimes it doesn't look like the gift that we want to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and let's just talk about this for a minute, under the hood, because I don't know that there's anything you can say to someone who has experienced a personal loss. Right now, I will tell you right now, here in the United States, there are a lot of people that are experiencing that, right? Can't make sense of it, all this other stuff, right? But at the same time, people also experience personal loss. Last week, Linda and I found out that, I don't know how we didn't know this, but then we found out how we didn't know this. A very close friend of ours passed away and we didn't know it.
Oh, I am so sorry to hear.
But how do we not know that? And it was interesting, this series of events. And I want to talk about this for a minute, because this too shall pass. See, this idea of my mom, when she would talk about it, and maybe your grandma, is she said that without the residue of guilt and shame. She wasn't talking about the guilt and shame we feel from things and circumstances which we don't have control of. But so often, that's just part of the dark and the light of this, isn't it?
Very much so. I find that, and I know that at one point my grandmother did use this. One was the loss of my best friend moving away and me not even knowing. One day she was there, the next day she was gone. Granted, I was
Right.
6, and I don't even know how much she knew about that she was leaving. but it was sort of, where'd she go? Why'd she go? Why didn't she tell me? And, when does this pain stop? And when my brother passed away, I went through it all over again, except this time it was definitely way more personal, um, not expected, not truly expected, I will say. And, it's like, when does this pain leave me? And my
Yeah.
grandmother said, it will pass, honey,
Yeah.
but you have to allow it to pass. And I
Boom.
said, how do I do that? Like, what, are you kidding me? I don't get to talk to him. I don't get to phone him anymore. I don't, I can't ask his advice on some of the silliest of things. I don't. And she said, you have every memory that you ever created with him. You are, you grow from stuff. If you
Mhm.
don't go through things and you don't pass through them and allow them to pass, don't hang on to them,
Mhm.
you won't grow. And unfortunately, it will repeat itself.
Yeah.
Different people, different things,
Mm.
let them go.
Mhm. I love this message, because we're talking about this too shall pass. You know what the interesting thing about that is? This was always fun for us as kids. This my Mama Doris was such an optimist. This woman, unbelievable. Given the life she had, I don't know how that happened, but she was. So this too shall pass. She was to remind us that this is part of the good things we experience in life. She would tell us to savor the moment of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we never understood that. But part of this is, let's talk about this in terms of grief. Now, I can't tell you how many people that have called me starting in the middle of the night at 4 in the morning with a group of young people I mentor. I can't tell you how many people or how many phone calls I've had with people that are grieving and grieving certain things. But you cannot dismiss somebody's grief.
No.
Best thing you can do is empathize. So, what kind of experience in life feel darkness to you? You just shared one about your friend leaving, right?
Hmm.
Last year for me, it was to find out my best friend. I didn't even, I didn't have a sense how sick she was until I realized it. And then I got on a plane. But there are lessons we learned from the darkness, aren't there? But you
Many.
have to go through these stages of grief. Tell us what that meant for you when you moved from that, from what your grandma said, to accepting the change. That's like a bridge that has, like, it's like a giant bridge to go from that place,
Massive.
those, right? But you
Massive.
will get through it and go to the places where you can find the light within. How is that for you?
For me, when my brother Doug died, I went through the stages of grief, and I honestly think that, when my grandmother said, this too shall pass, I was like, no, it's not. Like, you got a time frame? Yeah, is it like a day? Is it a week? Is it how long? And, it was telling me to permit it. And, I went, as I said, I went through the stages of grief, and I went through, I mean, let's face it, there were 5 of them. And I probably went through every one of them at least 2, 3, maybe 4 times. I think I think looking back, I mean, this is 32 years ago when the event occurred, and
Mm-hmm.
when he transitioned. And for me, it was devastating. And I bargained my butt off. Let me tell you the things that I said to God, that I'd do anything. I'd keep my room clean. I would be the perfect, the house would be clean. I'd be nice to every human being on the planet, everything. It didn't bring him back.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to change what had happened.
Yep.
And then part of me started to realize that, you know, feeling the hug that he would give me when I wasn't feeling good, being that supportive cheerleader I needed, when I was having crappy grades that, yeah, guess what? This too will pass. And I look back and go, wow, that seems so far ago. I'm such a different person. And that's what happened in this event. And it's weird that I can actually call it an event now and not a devastation.
Mm.
Because truthfully, when he passed, it was unbelievable. It was, I'd look for him in the crowd. I would, you know, I'd try to find him everywhere, but he wasn't there. And
Yeah.
eventually, when I realized I couldn't change what had happened, but I knew he wasn't far away.
Mm.
He's always in my heart. I don't let him go. He is a piece of me because he made me who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
He was building blocks. So it isn't easy losing someone that you love so deeply and that you have, I don't want to say depended upon, but in a way you do. You depend on each other. Don't take
Yeah.
it for granted.
Yeah.
Relish and honor those moments. And when somebody's going through it, yeah, this too shall pass is not probably the line I would even enter into saying to the person, because honor the grief. The grief is showing the love that you had for that individual. If you don't have grief, did you have any love? Would
Mm.
be my question.
Mm.
So honoring that is very important.
Yeah.
And it's not a step to be missed. It's not to be
No, it
resisted.
isn't.
It's not to be hidden away, anything like that.
No, it isn't. And it's also a reminder, so many other things that, are said to us over time, right? When we think about where we are today and where we're going, let's talk about this idea of accepting change. And, I found it so interesting in my own career, in my own pathway, that accepting change, well, I was never very good with it. And then I became known, uh, pretty well known for being the person you call into organizations to implement a change management plan. So I found the irony of that. I thought this is really okay. This is a cosmic joke now, right? Most of my life I'm like, right? And then I acquire a skill and become very good at re-engineering, change management, all of those things that even to this day in work, I will not do because the original premise was for the better and the good of all. Well, that's gone, So now I don't do that work anymore. But that was so ironic for me. I found myself up at Snohomish County PUD working with labor and management to redesign all of their utility systems. The irony of that is now I'm using them. But did a good job. But let's talk about this because the light has got to be found.
Mm-hmm.
The light has got to be found within because that is a sign of the light at the end of the tunnel. That's a sign when you can go through a day and have something to smile about. Would you talk about that and how important that is? And what if all of this change was for good?
It is amazing when we think that change is bad. Yeah, I tend to sort of invite people to say, hey, what if there was no good or bad? That's just the experience you're bringing to it. What if it's just an event? What if it's, and I will not use that with grief. Any person losing something,
Mm-hmm.
there is definite, but I will invite them to find what good spurns from the grief,
Yeah.
some part of you that you tap into. But when it comes to change, let's face it, we kind of like things the way they are. If it ain't fixed, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And at
Ah,
the same time, I don't think we were put on the planet to just sort of stay stagnant. We're meant to change. We're meant to grow. We're meant to, and sometimes that's done in the dark. It's not done when it's in the light, when you're celebrating, hey, I got this far. I'm this new person. And I, really hazard a guess to have people look back at their high school years or even their childhood years and say, I'm that same person. Your experiences enrich you. They make you a whole different person on how you respond to it, whether it's
Yeah.
a good whether it's a good thing or doesn't appear to be such a good thing. In the time, and I have watched multiple things happen in my world, such as, for example, my car breaking down last week. What was the good? I wasn't driving it at the time. I was in an appointment, and my, hubby was actually having to have somebody push it and help him push it off the highway into a
Wow.
mall. But we met so many incredible people during that experience that when I actually wrote about it on Facebook, it was a thank you to everybody that we ran into in that day or we were on the phone with, because it was a sense of peace and calm during a time when you're just going, I'm supposed to be at work in an hour and a half. Yeah, that's not happening. That's in a whole different town. Like I'm 65 kilometers, about 40 miles away. So, with a broken vehicle, that's not that. We had my hubby's brother drive up to pick us up and then drive us back and then drive me to work. So yeah, something that looked really crappy at the time
Yeah.
showed me the strength of humanity in moving through a change, a day that, yeah, this is definitely not what I had planned,
Yeah.
but I was met where I was willing to be. So,
And isn't that really the key of what we're talking about is that, moving forward, there's so many different things and so many different things we can say about it. But in the world we're living in now is that we are here in life to really be prepared to take that step forward in life, right?
mhm,
I mean, we're not here to just hang out and not
no,
have a future, right? And so what you're talking about here in This Too Shall Pass has the it has the assumption that this too shall pass to bring us to brighter days, to bring us back to happiness, to bring you, but just that saying itself, right?
mhm,
I remember the first time that I could recall my mom saying that was a disappointment I had in junior high school, right?
okay,
To me, I wanted to play the cello.
okay. And you got to play what?
My hands were too small for the cello.
Oh,
So I got the viola. And I love the sound of the cello. Now, clearly for me, I didn't expect to play anything. I mean, I'm a kid growing up in New York. Where do they even get a cello from, right? But this school, Junior High School 101, had a music program. And ultimately, they were the feeder for the city orchestra at Christopher Columbus High School. But I remember that as if something broke my heart. And it did pass. And what made it pass? Well, the devastation I thought by not being able to play the cello was basically zero. But there was something beyond that. For each of us, there's a piece of woundedness inside. Sometimes these events trigger it. The loss of our friend that we didn't know about just triggered all sorts of stuff. But what would you say to people now? And talk to the fact, what if change were good? What would you say? I did
for
get to play
me,
I did get to play the viola and I did make city orchestra. So that's the short
and
version of that.
and my question is, and did you have fun and enjoy doing it?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Love to hear that. Not that, oh, painful. God, I have to go play
No,
this.
no.
No, please, anything else. But for me, I find that a lot of resistance, fear of change that ultimately, if you look back, is good, is based on fear. Fear of an unknown, fear of a what if? What if I could have been this? There's a part of me that wants to say, well, if you could have been, you would have been. You weren't meant to. And sometimes the plans we have aren't big enough. Remember in last month's, we talked about God never gives you more than you can handle.
That's right.
And I firmly believe that today's episode sort of state it's a continuation of that. Never mind does he give you when he does give you something that you don't think you can handle, really you can, and it's setting you up for the bigger plan. So if we were to look at all of the things that occur in our life that don't appear good, where did they take us? On what road did we go? What journey are we on? In which now you're seeing, well, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be doing this now. I wouldn't have met so and so. I wouldn't be married to the love of my life because I never would have met her on the other path.
Yeah.
I had to go through, I had to become a different person. And in all of your growth in the dark times and everything that comes out, that's what's happening is you grow when you allow it to pass, when you honor what you are going through. And then you say, show me the good,
Yeah.
bring forth the good for me. It'll come. It will if you are open to receiving it. And then when it does, you get to take that next step into letting your life shine, becoming that person who's actually taking their time to soar. So
Yeah.
I really invite people that sometimes it's not good or bad. It's darkness and light. Go through the dark, become the light that you were meant to be. And
Yeah.
I believe everyone is meant to have a light.
Mm. You know, what you're saying is so profoundly hopeful. And I think that's really the other part of this is really looking at, what are we talking about in terms of this too shall pass? See, if we don't hold that, we don't hold hope. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We don't hold this thing that motivates us, that inspires us, that helps our belief that this too shall pass. We lose that sense of ever having an optimistic future, but yet we've seen it over and over and over again in our own lives that that is exactly the way it could turn out. We see it over and over again.
Well, when we're given that hope, when somebody says to you, "What if?" Could you believe? This little portion of the back of your mind that says, I mean, I've talked to people who say, "Yeah, no, there's no hope." And I go, in the whole fiber of your being, there is not one little piece of you that believes it could be different. It could be better.
Hmm.
If you've got that, focus on that. Don't focus on the dark, right? Like when you become attached to the bad, saying this is all I can have, this is all I can do, this is, in today's world, this is the best it's going to get.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of you that knows that's wrong. There is a part of you that firmly knows that you can do better and that you can become the person you want to, do the dreams, fulfill your dreams.
Yeah.
And when you lose hope, I invite you to get in touch with that piece of you and ask, where are you? What do I need to actually find you again? And ideas will pop up. They will come forth. They will show you that change is good, that where you're at, regardless of, I find that people, when the pain of where they're at is more powerful than where they're going to go, that's when they're willing to change.
Yeah.
They will, they will, they will throw anything at it. They will go for it. They'll take the leap of faith. And it's like, before it gets that if you're not where you want to be, tap into the piece that knows it can be different and
Yeah.
change is what you need to do.
I think that's why we do these shows. That's why we're doing your show. That's why what we're talking about here is your time to soar. Because, if you all are listening to this, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, that's when you move. We don't want you to wait for that. We don't want your pain to have a competition with itself. See, that's not the goal here. Like the pain of
No.
staying the same is competing with the pain of changing. We don't want that. We want the idea of recognize there's a pain that's happening. You're looking at the landscape. It doesn't matter. You can be in this country, you can be in other countries, other continents, Canada, Australia. Everybody's got their own situations. You could have a family situation. But don't
So
wait to have that competition between the pain of staying where you are and the pain of change, because that competition is not a win-win, is it?
Oh, it's pretty much a lose-lose
Thank you.
all the way around.
It's a big old loser up there.
Yeah.
Lois, thank you for today. How do people find out more about you? Please tell folks, and then leave us with your personal message.
My personal contact would be to get me at, to go to my website at timetosoarcoaching.ca. You can contact me through there. You can contact me through Lois at timetosoarcoaching.ca. And I guess my personal message for everybody on the call is whatever you're going through right now, it can change. It will pass. It doesn't feel like it. You don't know the timeline. You'd really like that. I know we like our guarantees in life, but sometimes it's the journey that we take that'll make it so much more richer, so much more fun, even though it doesn't really look that way. Sometimes look backwards in order to see where you're going to go next.
There's no
Thank you,
question
Dr.
about
Pat.
it. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Pat, for having me today, and for all the listeners that have taken time out to listen to us talk about this really important subject.
That's right. And remember, this whole idea of this too shall pass is also embedded in the fuel that will enable you to take action on your own behalf, albeit small, teeny, microscopic. Movement is the key. Thank you so much, Lois. Thank you. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. We'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Your Time to Soar, the Wisdom from Pearls. Tune in every second Tuesday of the month at 11:30 a.m. Pacific with Lois Leonard and Dr. Pat for more pearls that will help your dreams come to life. If life seems complicated, use the pearls for support. These gems are for you to enjoy and learn something new. Life is an experiment. Be curious and use the pearls daily and see the change in your life. Schedule a discovery session with Lois to discuss further by visiting timetosoarcoaching.ca.